My audio recorder is broken tonight, and I'm probably gonna have to get a new one tomorrow. But I need to record the last finding that I discovered today. It's unfortunate because most of this stuff I put into my audio recorder, and I've got over 30,000 audio recordings working out all of the details of the theory and the math and everything else. But what I found today was what, in my view, will work as the last hour. Now, in this recording, I'm going to try to summarize all of the hours, how they work, and really kind of capture what's involved in it. I have to say that over the past 2 or 3 months, in what could have been a really stressful time for me personally, my greatest weapon has been the hours. I talk about these in my books. Um, it's the idea that if you could control when you wake up, then you can control half of what kinds of situations you end up in. See, the morning for me is around here. This is 6 o'clock. Well, it's actually 6:34, and this is 6:34. This is 7:17. This here is at 7:47. This is at 8:07. How do I know this? Well, in this recording, I'm going to explain how I found the last one. And so you'll see what I did and how one knows these things. So first of all, I'm going to go into my chart. I'll get back to this background in a second. But I'm going to go into my chart and let's see here. Put my only the planets that have hours associated with them on there. So let's go in here, and I'm going to take out everything that doesn't have a time window. Now, this is a very small list, and I'll explain what seems to have importance in this. And if you don't understand what the hours are, don't worry, you'll get it as I record this. How many are in here? Hopefully it's 11. Yes, these bodies. Okay, so I'm going to leave this by itself, and I'll save a new list as the hours shortly. Okay, these 11 bodies, at least for me personally, have times associated with them. And so this is 5:21 p.m. This is 1:18 a.m. 2:18 a.m. is Jupiter. And no. Okay, see this here? Jupiter at 6, node at 5:02. That's not right. It's the wrong node. Let me go back in here. It's not the mean node. It is the true node. Okay, good. Because the true node, in my observation, is after the hour of Jupiter. What is all this? Okay, so I've told this story in several books, and how I discovered this. It's a huge deal, and I'm not saying it's essential to astrohacking, but it's an essential companion. Even if you're not hacking, it's an essential companion to um, uh, basically controlling what happens astrologically. So when I was in college around the year 2000, 2001, I had a, kind of a difficult time in college, but I also had a weekend job. And sometimes I would wake up in the morning and I'd have one kind of day. Other times I would wake up at a different time in the morning and have a different kind of day, but it was very consistent. And there was a span of maybe about a week where I kept automatically, no alarm, waking up at 6:34. And I talk about this in the book as well. If you want to discover the hours you can't wake up with an alarm, because what an alarm will do is fix you at a certain time, a certain kind of job dictated, family task dictated time, and it's away from your natural processes. You will need to wake up when your body wants to wake up. Um, the weekend is the best time to do this, right? Because we have jobs. But also during the weekdays, if you can wake up a little bit earlier than your job requires, then you can see how the day goes differently. So what happened was that I didn't like alarms because I didn't like being startled out of sleep. And I would consistently wake myself up at 6:34 a.m. And I'd get up and I'd start doing things. Now, the significance of that is that at the start of the hours, if you start action in that band, then it starts immediately. So anyway, I didn't know this was a thing. And then I moved over so I had my weekend job and I didn't have to work till late. So sometimes I would wake myself up at 7:47. And at 7:47, I'd always have accidents and I'd always have kind of a chaotic day. And maybe you can see where this is going, right? Right here, 6:34. Oh, it's not 7:47, sorry, 7:17. So, but if I woke up at something like, I don't know, 7:30, I'd still have accidents, but they'd be later in the day. They'd be around noon. So now let me fast forward through all of this. I noticed that when I woke up between 7:17 and 7:47, I would have a chaotic day. And depending on what time I woke up between here and here, I would have chaotic kind of major events of the day, the one that defines the day, somewhere between here and here. And if I woke up at 6:34 and had something significant happen, it would start immediately. But if I woke up at, say, 6:40, a little bit afterwards, I'd see something significant happen around here. But if I woke up at, I don't know, 7:15, right before 7:17, it would still be kind of a normal day, but the defining event would be here. So what the hours end up being is like little previews, little micro days between this band and this band ends up being dictated by the sun. And I have a sun-like day all the way until the end of my day at 1721 hours, and so on and so forth. If I wake up at the hour of Venus, then I will have a pretty smooth day. I mean, it's like fortune, all the good things happen at the hour of Venus. It's a little window between 7:47 and 8:07, but it dictates what happens between here at Venus and here. So if I wake up at, say, 7:57, then the defining event of the day will be very Venusian in nature, and it'll be halfway. Now, I've since learned that my day starts at the moon. Like I have a brand new day at 1721 hours, 5:21 p.m. in the afternoon. And it doesn't matter if I shift time zones. It's something about, my body's adjusting to the light or whatever. I could be in Texas or I could be in Georgia where I am now. So I have this kind of automatic reset of things happening at 1721 hours. And it's really, really interesting when you know what your day starter is. And for reasons that I might be able to get to in this recording, or I might be able to do in another recording, I will, actually, I'm going to try to keep it all in one recording. It's going to be very long, by the way. But if you want to know how to use the hours, this is the one recording that you should pay attention to. So anyway, I had this, it's kind of weird because sometimes I would be on the road coming from work in the afternoon and I would notice a traffic event. And if that traffic event happens at like 5:22, I would learn that there'd be another traffic event at 5:23. If the traffic event happened at 5:31, there'd be another kind of crazy traffic thing. Somebody almost, hit somebody and you have to dodge something or whatever at 5:41. And so it doesn't take long for you to calculate something like that as doubling. Starting at 5:21, if I add 10 minutes, and have a significant event, then it tells about the event 10 minutes after that. So if I add an hour, it tells about something an hour after that. So at 5:21 p.m., if I have a significant event at 6:21 p.m., how I'm feeling, that's the moon, tends to come up again at 7:21 p.m. Now, this is for me personally. Your chart's going to be very different. So this thing doubles, and it's really cool because as soon as I learned about it, it's probably like a year, and around 2002, I learned that I could predict whether or not a thing was worth going to. And I actually tried this out and learned very quickly that if I had some kind of event that I needed to be at 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock is an hour and 40 minutes after 5:21. So I would learn that I'd start feeling weird, like feeling a little weird at, say, the 50-minute mark, around 6:11, 6:10. And I'm like, And then I'd go to the event, and it would suck. But if I felt good about it, then I'd know it was safe. So like I said, it didn't take long for me to learn how to use this and learn how to get out of things and learn how to schedule things. Because if I had an event that, say, was questionable and I didn't know whether I'd really want to be at it or I'd really want to deal with the people there, then I'd say, hey, let's do this at 8 o'clock. And 8 o'clock would give me warning. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes after this. And so 1 hour and 20 minutes after 5:21, I would see how I felt at, say, 6:40. And if I felt weird, I'd be able to cancel at 6:40 and not go. And 8 o'clock wouldn't happen. The weirdness would kind of go away. If you know what hour you're in, you can plan things, schedule things. So for example, before I moved into my new house, this house in the back, it's crazy. It's like, dude, totally the result of astrohacking. Like, I've done some things to manipulate how stuff plays out in the chart. In Alma Mater, I talk about this as calculated magic. This house back here is 5 times bigger than the house that I came from. It looks like an office, and that's because it was, but it's both. It's the house is like, it's like a castle. But anyway, it's the result of some of the astrohacking videos. You know, more money, relationships, riches, you name it, you can astrohack and look at my astrohack videos to see how it's done. I've totally been doing it. It's totally been working. You're like, what is that? Astrohacking, what are you doing? Are you, casting some kind of spell or writing some kind of rune? No, I'm controlling when I wake up. I'm controlling what I pay attention to. That's most of it. The controlling what you pay attention to is the center of astrohacking, but controlling when you wake up basically shifts what kind of world you're going to end up in. And I'll explain that in a second when I get to the hour of Venus versus the hour of Uranus. Anyway, so I did a bunch of observations of just over the course of years. It took about 3 years. And of just when stuff happened and how stuff felt when it happened. And because I wake up whenever, just kind of whenever, depending on what I'm doing, I woke up at certain times and then I noted how the day was going. I still kind of haven't worked out what happens between here and here in terms of the rest of the day, but for the most part, you can kind of see that when I wake up at the hour of Mars at 1:18 a.m., because sometimes that happens. I crashed. I was working, and next day I don't really have to be anywhere. It's just me. I don't have a family or anything, so I can wake up at 1:18 a.m. and do nothing. I can get on the computer. But man, when I wake up at 1:18, there is a fight, usually during the day. Usually. Fight with somebody or something or someone. And that's the nature of my Mars. So I learned not to wake up at 1:18. My hour of Jupiter is really tiny. It starts at 2:18 and it ends at 2:22. I woke up a lot at the hour of node, and this is the true node, at least in my chart. 2:22 a.m. to 3:23 a.m. If I wake up at that time, then I typically run into some kind of life-changing event. My vertex is also related. It is also located there. The hour of Saturn, I tend to learn, They say Saturn is a malefic. It's supposed to be negative. It may be in other people's chart. In mine, it's kind of how I work. I need structures. I do these kinds of videos because Saturn is like my bud. So between 3:23 and 5:18 a.m., I've got the hour of Saturn. I learned that if I woke up at the hour of Pluto, there is a very significant kind of pressure from the world. And this is not self-fulfilling prophecy. Try it out yourself. Try waking up consistently at some weird hour like 3 a.m. and see what your day is like. Then switch back to your normal time. I'm telling you, this is a thing. So anyway, I've got all these times, but I had trouble with the hour of Neptune. The hour of Neptune didn't really have a it didn't really have a character up until really 2 days ago. I just never knew. And that's because Neptune is the last hour before the end of my day. It didn't seem to predict anything. And also I had trouble even finding out when it started, just because it was so amorphous and the nature of the day was kind of crazy. Anyway, so you have these hours, and now let me talk about this thing as far as astrohacking, because it's very important. Like I said, for the past 2 or 3 months, I've gone through a bunch of like stressful, they should have been stressful type events, conflicts, stuff like that. And one thing I've been very, very, very careful to do is not wake up at the hour of Uranus. Don't do it. You can cheat this system. And how do you control when you wake up? You're like, oh, I'm awake now. No, no, no. You're not awake until you get up and you tell your body, I'm doing things for the rest of the day. You can totally cheat this. And sometimes, you feel like there's a pressing thing that's supposed to happen during the day, and maybe you have to get up and go to the bathroom at, I don't know, 5:30. If this is my chart and I've got a stressor coming for the next day and I have to get up at 5:30 a.m., I kind of drowsily, groggily sleepwalk, use the bathroom, drowsily, groggily go back to sleep, and I never woke up. The hour of Pluto does not happen. Drowsily, groggily, I'm not really engaging the world. You're not awake. Try it. I'm telling you, it works. You can cheat this system as long as you don't tell your body to be awake and be alert. So I have often, over the past 3 months, been like, oh, naturally awake. I look at the clock at 7:30. I go back to sleep. 7:42. I go back to sleep. 7:48. Oh, okay, we're in the outer Venus. I get up and I'm ready. I'm telling you, this is what you do. Of course, you have to know when those hours are. Your chart won't have 6:34, 7:17, 7:47, 8:07, 9:18. It won't be arranged like that. Your planets are spaced out differently, and so you're going to have to experiment when, waking up in a certain time actually colors your day. Do try it. I would try it during the week at your job, because at your job, you're dealing with certain kinds of people and they've got certain kind of tasks. And I work in a technical job. It's very brain draining, and you might find it odd that I don't like data. I do a data related job. I can't stand data. If I can't control the data or grow from the data, then the data is just noise to me. And so I can still do my job. And in fact, I've been doing my job in a nice, kind of pretty way by consistently waiting and waking up at the hour of Venus and, just doing it that way. Now, if I had to wake up earlier and Venus were not an option, because it's at 7:17, so it's at 7:47, so it's very late for an 8 o'clock job. I can get away with it because I work remotely. But if I couldn't, I'd wake up at the hour of sun instead, between 6:34 and 7:17. But by no means do I wake up here. Do I let myself get up here? I know I'm harping on that, but I'm just telling you what you need to decide to do if you're going to use your wake up time as a way of coloring the environment of the day. Now, there are two things that I learned about um, the hours. And again, you'll see it referred to as the hours in my books, like Laurentia and I think 144. It's in Alma Mater. All my last three of the five full spectrum astrology books, I talk about this because I of my astrohacking, wake up time is about 70 to 80% of what I do. The last 20 to 30% is actually picking different tasks to do or pay attention to. But most of my astro hacking is when I wake up. And I've had, just a little bit of disclosure, I've had some issues with, you know, other parties kind of like being a source of conflict. And they really wanted to, start a ruckus. Couldn't find me. If I don't wake up at the hour of Uranus or the hour of Pluto, they can't get to me. It just because it's not, my chart isn't set up like that. My stressors are here, here, and here. If I wake up between 1:18 and 2:18, 5:18 and 6:34, 7:17 and 7:47, if I want a fight, I need to wake up in those times. If I don't want to fight, I need to not. And so, like I said, I've known this and couldn't be found. Couldn't be found, couldn't be touched. Freak accidents, person's unavailable, person can't be found. Things happen such that the energy just isn't amplified. I'm telling you to do this. If your life is full of stress, um, you might, and actually, it's easier to find how your hours work when you deal with stressors because I wouldn't have discovered the hours had I not been waking up consistently at the hour of Uranus uh, and having accidents occur. Like I said, I talk about that in my book. I talk about the nature of the accidents, dropping the soap, just clumsy crap, clumsy stuff happening. But then the clumsy stuff would happen again during the day. Now, control when you wake up. Okay, let me get to the two big discoveries from this weekend. And like I said, um, this is probably going to be a long video, but if you want to know how to like seriously start controlling events in your life, watch the whole thing. Now, I have been wondering for a while how this works, kind of. I don't want to say physics wise because I don't know all that. I did read this really interesting paper on the Clarissa family of asteroids. I think it's like 302, MPC number 302 Clarissa, because Clarissa was a candidate for a certain kind of ruler, astro ruler. I'll get to that in a second. And it was neat how all the dynamics come together in this family of 179 asteroids at the time of the publication. They're talking about bands and they're talking about this, the orbital elements and things like that, and how they all work together. And it's really interesting how they modeled this because they modeled it in terms of uh, heat and dynamics and rotational speeds and orbits and you know chemical compositions, which is stuff I talk about in Laurentia. Now, granted, Laurentia is not an astrophysics book, and yet, much like kind of the Hindu philosophy, there are pieces that can be grafted onto the new science, and it's not hogwash. So, anyway, so I studied this because I was trying to find out how the bands match up. And here's how you do it. So from my other recordings that I use duodecanates. And it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way around to 144. And the way I divide them is band 1, band 2, band 3, band 4. And each of these takes 30 degrees and divides it into 12 segments of 2.5 degrees each. Those bands kind of confronted me with an issue because on Friday, I wanted to try to set up an hour of Brambilla. I wanted to see if I could do this. See, right now, all these guys have hours, but there's an asteroid of how you build up your value because, somebody would ask, and I mentioned this in the book, they said, well, if astrology works so well, why don't you use it to make yourself rich? I am. And it's kind of working, you know? But one of the asteroids of building up value is Brambilla, and it's located here. So I tried to wake up after 8:07 on purpose on Friday, and right at the time when I thought Brambilla was going to work. It's something like 8:46. Did it? It did not. There was no such hour of Brambilla. What happens instead is that duodecanates, it's weird why they work, and this is if you kind of read my books, then you know that there's a difference between uh, the aspect treatment in 144 and the kind of mathy by the duodecanate stuff in either Alma Mater or the first two books. Now, if you weren't paying attention to this or it just wasn't on your mind, you won't catch it. But I wrote those books, and the way they handle sign differences, angles, basically, it's not the same. You would almost think, well, this is a contradiction because in one of them you can add by signs, and the other one you add by angles. How in the world do they both work? The reason they both work is because the duodecanates aren't actually dividing these into mini signs. That's how I described it. They're actually putting mega signs on top of these. And so, really, although my sun is in Scorpio, Scorpio 9, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 right here. It's in the Sagittarius or the novile group of Scorpio. Even though my sun is in Scorpio 9, it turns out that when you start using duodecanates, it's more like in the space of events that are Scorpio-like, I'm doing Sagittarius things. And so it's like turning your sun into a Sagittarius in a Scorpio situation. Let me try that again, because this lines up with what I've observed. You've got planets in signs, and it really is like you're using those planets with the character of those signs. But we're also meta-aware creatures. That is to say, when we're in a situation, we also have in our human brains the ability to think of what the situation above us is and what the object we're dealing with is. And so you actually have three levels of anything: self, other, and world. I talk about this all the time in my books. Most of the time, when you are interacting with an object or a thing or whatever, you're dealing with the other type, whatever. I'm mad, right? I'm mad, so I'm doing Scorpio things. Okay, cool. But you're mad in a situation, and you're mad dealing with an object. And so you can actually kind of shift the nature of what you're looking at. It turns out that if I were using, for example, my sun in Scorpio, but I were not thinking about my own actions. Instead, I were thinking about the situation, the Scorpio type situation, then I'm basically a sun in Sagittarius. This is in the tropical chart, right? In sidereal, it uses slightly different analogies, right? But the tropical chart is how you are appearing in the nameable world. The sidereal chart is what you're using in the phenomenal world. If you're using your arms are constant. Look at the sidereal chart. If you're waving is a socialized act. So you're using the tropical chart. We're only using tropical because we're looking at how things look. We're not looking at fundamental kind of energy structures, body parts, and plants and planets, and physics or not physics, biology or not biology. If we're looking at constant laws and how they sit across time and they're not subject to social change over the millennia, sidereal. But waking up, dealing with somebody, dealing with something, doing something, working a job, the nature of work, the nature of strength, all that stuff changes over time. It's tropical. Anyway, so I'm in the tropical chart here. And what I noted just now was that with a sun in Scorpio, it is like I'm a Scorpio just on a basic level. But when it comes to framing context and putting myself in I'm doing some things in a Scorpio situation, then I'm doing them as a 9 here, and that's a Sagittarius. So you can actually kind of change your signs for some of these things. And I had a question at the end of Friday when I was trying to come up with an hour of Brambilla and couldn't do it. By the way, what was my day like on Friday? It was totally Mercury. It was, waking up at anywhere in this band between 8:07 and 9:18. My day is like Mercury. I tried to wake up right here and really concentrate on Brambilla things. Couldn't. It was a Mercury day, for sure. And you're like, what's a Mercury day? It took 20 years to figure that out, right? How the Mercury day is different from the Venus day and all that other stuff. But it was basically a day of me trying to work out stuff, work out logical relationships and things like that. It's very different from Easy Street, which is the nature of Venus in my chart. Anyways, so I think I need a fan in here. It's getting hot. It's still recording. Okay, I'm back here. So, yeah, where was I? Anyway, so you have these hours here. Now, the thing that I discovered on Friday is that if you couldn't set up an hour of Brambilla, and it was a matter of Mercury, no matter how you looked at it. I started going over the bands, and you have two ways of really looking at wake up times. Wake up times set your world in place. I'm sorry, I know this is going to get complicated, so try to follow me here because it's about to come out of my mouth and I myself haven't thought of a good way to explain this. But wake up times set up your world that you're in. They don't determine what you do. So if you're waking up at the hour of Uranus, you're going to have a Uranian day, but it doesn't mean that you're going to get stuck in social information all day. And so on Friday, I was thinking that, by the way, that was Friday, August the 13th, 2021. This is the 15th when I'm recording. But I said, look, either my hours are telling me about the signs I'm in, or they're telling me about the duodecanate slices. There's an answer to this. I'm going to tell you how I got to it. So, I'm working on this house. There's a lot of stuff in this house that makes noise. I'm still trying to fix it. I had creatures in my attic, and they were totally like having a party yesterday. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. If I record other versions of this, like more videos later, you'll see how the house changes, by the way. But anyway, so I heard a noise. So what can I say? So the two options were waking up at the hour of Mercury either fills your day with Virgo stuff or fills your day with the sixth duodecanate in every sign. Those were your two options. There's a little bit of logic, but also a lot of observation that comes with this. And the short version is that when I wake up at the hour of Mercury, I'm not I'm not spending my whole day talking to friends in the seventh house. And I'm not also spending my whole day just doing only Virgo things. When I wake up at the hour of Mercury, I could do any of these things. And so observing the flow of the day and what the hours were about, it turns out that when you wake up at an hour, you're actually highlighting your ability to do that duodecanate in every sign. So, for example, one of the biggest pieces of kind of observation that I came up with is that by far my most stressful day comes when I wake up at the hour of Mercury. And the question is, am I doing only Uranian things? 12th house, it's kind of weird. Or am I doing 11th? My number one stressor is the asteroid Pax. Pax is very, very stressful, as you know. I think it's like 679, or I don't remember what the number is. PAX. Stress. It's one of the biggest stressors in the first 1000. My Pax is located in Virgo 11, right here. See that? It's the 11th duodecanate. When I wake up at the hour of Uranus, I could be doing Pax things, and since I'm usually working on that day, I'm in a Virgo context, experiencing the 11th. So if I want to stress myself out and I happen to do work that day, waking up at the hour of Uranus, of all 12 possibilities for 11s that could happen, I'm going to end up here because I'm working that day, right? It's totally hackable. It's totally hackable. It's like a code I program for a living. So, it's really, really predictable. It is as predictable as that stuff on Clarissa with, pieces of a shattered asteroid being able to, kind of have its dynamics mapped. So at this point, we're kind of like robots here, right? But also, you note that when you wake up at a particular hour and you're accessing these duodecanates, you can choose. You can choose which one you do. So, I could turn off my stressor if I woke up at this hour, as long as I don't do any work. Right? Don't do any chores, don't do any Uranian things. Don't do any Virgoan things. By the way, if you read Full Spectrum Astrology, the first book, I don't really believe in rulers. I don't believe in sign rulerships, and part of the reason is because folks said that Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, which doesn't make any kind of physics sense. It just doesn't make sense, right? And also, when you start observing the nature of conflicts and how the conflicts feel different, look, try waking up at your hour of Pluto when you find it, and then try waking up at your hour of Mars, and then look at your ones and your eights and see which is which. Of course, you have to kind of study the duodecanates a little more to know the difference. And I'm telling you, Pluto does not rule Scorpio. Mars does. Now, it has to do with orbits and everything. You're like, well, why would we get it confused? I said, well, we get it confused because for any number of reasons, but they have to do with actor and object and being in the situation, but being the causer of the situation. It's really kind of easy to get the rulers of Libra, the rulers of Libra and Taurus confused, Aries and Scorpio confused, sometimes Virgo and Mercury. That's one of the early ones that you learn how to tell apart, though. Sagittarius and Neptune, easy to get them confused. And in the ancient astrology, we used to use kind of the same families of planets. And they were basically reflections of each other because they came with context. Anyway, don't worry about that. The point is that you're not actually. Man, I lost my train of thought. So anyway, the point is that Pluto, it's not giving me a Scorpio type day. What is it giving me? So the reason this wheel only has these planets on it is because these are the planets who have times associated with them between other planets. When you wake up at any of these times, they have a distinct character. And that character actually corresponds to, oh, I remember what I was going to say. That character actually corresponds to a band in the duodecanate. What I did is I took a look at what asteroids I had in, say, the 12s. And so in my group here, I could select all of the 12th harmonics, and these are the kinds of things that happen in the 12s. And these are my 12 options. So in theory, if I wake up at a certain hour that rules 12s or correlates bandwise with the 12s, then these things should be more likely to happen during that day. Now, I've talked about the hour of Uranus, so let me go ahead and go to the 11s because they're easier to kind of talk about. I told you it was chaotic days. What kinds of stuff can happen during this? Well, all these guys can happen chaos-wise, but I've got some of them that are really kind of suspect. My favorite, Valletta, is there. This whole family, this is really fun. They're, it's kind of just like action-packed that day. And I cannot find Cancer because I guess I'm not looking hard enough. But oh yeah, there's Valletta. But Pax is associated with something that I don't have up here. Well, anyway, I don't really know what I'm looking for. I'm gonna go ahead and skip that. But I was looking at those asteroids, and I was asking myself, are these more likely to happen when I wake up at the hour of Uranus? And the answer is yes. Any of these 11s are. And this is what you want if you're trying to hack astrology. Let's say that you really want to activate, say, your Brambilla. Your Brambilla happens to be in the 7th band of Sagittarius. That's where mine is, right? Yours is wherever. But because mine is in the 7th band, I want to wake up at a planet associated with the 7th band. And so, and again, this is all in Laurentia, why these bands go the way they do. But it kind of is like rulership, but you don't want to talk about rulership because there are asteroids and moons and there are other things and there are physics relationships and all that other stuff that's behind it. And we don't know enough about that in astrology to really say something rules something else, but the correlations are there. And so I'll tell you what the rulers are. They shouldn't surprise you. Not rulers, but the correlations are. Mercury is band 6. Venus is band 7. Mars is band 8 for sure. Jupiter, band 9. Saturn is band 10. Uranus is band 11. Neptune is band 12. Pluto is band 1. Band 1. It wraps around. And so it's kind of like a public ruler. I talk about the point of action and the point of worth and the point of internal monologue in full spectrum astrology. Those are hypothetical rulers of Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, respectively. They're hypothetical because they're one level down in the physics involved, basically in the banding involved from the sun back to the Earth perspective via the moon, right? They're one level down. One level up is, instead of what happens before the moon, we're asking what happens after Neptune. And then you get into the Kuiper belt. So the second Aries ruler after the point of action would be Pluto. It's right on the Kuiper belt. It's Pluto, but it's everything that flies around in Pluto. The third one, an alternative one would also be Eris. And Eris is kind of like an Aries ruler as well. And then there's like a Taurus one. And then Sedna is kind of like a Cancer, again, wrap around. But there you go. So Quar, by the way, is also a very good Aries secondary ruler. And this is why you don't have rulers. Because much like on humans, the splitting of the legs, right? You know, you've got this energy going as you get past Scorpio, right? I talk about this in Alma Mater. I'm not trying to distract you here, but the point is, at some point, you get so far from the central object that you've got several big objects that are kind of like little planetoids. They're dwarfs, and they have a rulership quality. And what you said about Jupiter, you cannot say about Eris, Makemake, Pluto, Charon, and Quar, because they're not a single object. So you're like, why does any of this matter? It matters because it describes the nature of the band that you can work with. So what I've found is that next past Neptune is Pluto-ish. And I don't know if Pluto's a good secondary ruler of Aries, but what I do know is that Pluto has a definite hour. It's like definite. I wake up at 5:18. I have a definite kind of day, and it corresponds to this degree in my chart. The ruler of, so the sun is the fifth band. When I wake up at the hour of sun, I get a Leo type day. Well, it's not a Leo type day. It's a very, hey, I'm just interacting with you type day. Remember, the sun is all about interaction. Venus is all about communication. With the sun, you're like, hey, look at me, we're doing stuff. Venus is, we're having a feedback for feedback conversation. Just remember that. Band 4 is the moon. And part of the reason my moon doubles and reflects is because the moon is in its own duodecanate, Aries 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I were to wake up at the hour of moon, then one of my options for the fours is to start things that are moon-like. And so it predicts itself. If you have a planet that happens to sit in its own band, then you might have that kind of prediction. So for example, Mars is in Leo 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and so on and so forth. If Saturn were in its 10th, if Jupiter were in its 9th, if Pluto was in its 1st, if the Sun were in its 5th, Uranus were in its 11th, Venus were in its 7th, Mercury were in its 6th, or Neptune were in its 12th, then you'd probably have a kind of premonitory reflection. That's just a hypothesis now. Okay, so what have we learned so far? The hours are definite with these guys, at least for me personally. They're majors. And when you wake up at them, you're waking up with an increased ability to do the duodecanate in the band that that planet corresponds to. If I want to, for example, have a very Venus type day, and I'm like, you know, I'm in the mood to just socialize, and I want to highlight Scorpio 1, I need to wake up at the correlate for ones, which is the hour of Pluto. If I wake up at the hour of Pluto, because it's the secondary ruler of band 1, here, 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 and so on are all most likely to happen. They're more likely to color your day. I tried this out, by the way, over the weekend, and I found that it made sense. Okay, so if you didn't catch it, this is one of your routes to astrohacking. Because let's say that you want to really, really increase your popularity. You just want to be accepted in the world. The asteroid of acceptance in the world, one of the really big ones, and the reason I studied it, was Clarissa. So let's say that you want to go after Clarissa. Okay, there it is. Clarissa is in my second band, right? Well, it's in Capricorn 2. So I haven't displayed it here, but Clarissa is right there, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, yada, yada, yada. 1, 2. Okay, so Clarissa is here. If I want a better chance at activating Clarissa, and I did over the weekend, I need to know who rules band 2. Wait a minute, we don't know. So let me introduce 2 weirdos that I kind of left out. Now remember, in full spectrum astrology, I talked about the point of action, the point of worth, and the point of internal monologue. We know that the little version of an Aries ruler is the point of action. It's just a hypothetical thing that you have to pick. It's actually better than nothing, and it does work. But you have to pick it. It's a proxy for like genetic type stuff. But if you don't want to do that, then you can go with the slower wraparound version, which is Pluto. Who rules Taurus or Gemini? The Hour of Node is definitely something with a distinctive character. You feel like, wow, this is amazing. I've grown, I've moved, I needed to do this. Node is a ruler, and it's one of the rulers of Gemini. Okay, so again, you can try this out, and if you find otherwise, great. Publish it, tell people. But what I've found is that node is a thing, and true node, it's the true node. It essentially rules Gemini for me. When I wake up at the hour of node, I'm like, man, why am I having such crazy discoveries at the hour of node? Well, if you remember, Capricorn 3 is all about insight, and Aquarius 3 is all about offering your 2 cents. And you just have the ability to get more of these when my Saturn for structure is in Virgo 3. So when I wake up at the hour of node, all of my 3s have the ability to get highlighted, including my ascendant. So I'm able to go forward. I'm able to get structure. It's nice. It's cool. It's consistent with 20 years of observation of these things. When you're waking up at the hours and you're using the hours to astrohack, consider the north node to be the ruler of Gemini, Pluto to be the ruler of Aries. Who rules Taurus? Taurus was tough because after some consideration on Friday, I concluded that I knew exactly what was happening between here and around here, around 11 o'clock, starting at 1:18 all the way to about 8:07-ish. I knew exactly what was happening. There are only 11 bodies here. But if you want to activate your Taurus and you need a kind of ruler for it, it's not here. It's not in here. And really, in terms of like my observation and stuff, I've never really consistently been able to activate my 2s. And there's probably a reason for that. I can wake up at any number of random hours at the night, but not during my day job. And so the culprit ruler was probably here. And I tried this out today, Sunday morning, where I'm free to wake up at any time. Let me tell you what happened today. I woke up at 10:22, and well, I kind of started to wake up at 10:22, and I just kind of contemplated some things because I'd gotten up earlier and then I went back to sleep. And I contemplated till 10:28. I'm watching the clock because I'm trying to find who rules Taurus, and I'm convinced that it's somewhere here in the afternoon, and I just haven't been able to catch it over the years. Because when do you get the opportunity to wake up at 1? Most of us don't. Most of us are working or doing something like that. So between 10:22 and 10:28, I had to like kind of decide to get up. 10:28, I got up, did some stuff around the house, and eventually I went to the store. So I went to this store. Here's the receipt. And I went to the store at a particular time in order to fight some creatures which I know are crawling around in my attic right now. And I did it. It was epic. It was major. it was major. Like, I had to go up there and crawl under things and get insulation on me and stuff like that. It was crazy. But it corresponded to a time window between 1219 and 1253. Later, I had to do some other stuff. And unexpectedly, I had to go to another store again. And I had a similar kind of experience. Now, I held up the receipts because these receipts have the time. They have the time when the visit to the store ended. And so, again, I talk about this in the books on how to do this, but it's not that complicated. It's mathy, but it's not that complicated. You have to take when an event started and when it stopped and match it up against a later event that started and stopped and just divide ratios. And that'll tell you basically how long your windows are. And what I found is, again, had to do like quite a bit of calculation. I found that there was a ruler which started at 1220-ish, 1219. And in my chart, that's about here. It's in 6 Aquarius. It's six degrees Aquarius, also known as Aquarius 10 as a duodecanate. Because remember, the duodecanates go backwards, right? They go this way, 1 through 12, but the degrees go this way, 0 through 30. Anyway, so I found that the ruler was here. That is to say, there's a new hour determinant which helps you highlight your identity. It's associated with identity. What is located here that could have any kind of significance at this in my chart? Well, and it can't be a random asteroid, right? It has to be something that makes some kind of physics sense, right? The answer is the AntiFortune. Never would have guessed this. I never would have guessed this. Let me go in here and introduce the part of fortune. Okay, there you go. There it is. My part of fortune is at 6 Leo, right here, 640 Leo. And it is exactly opposite this magic point, which has an hour. Very weird. It's not the part of spirit. If you're familiar with the nocturnal and diurnal versions of the part of fortune, there's a daytime calculation and a nighttime one. The part of spirit is over here. It's just the reverse against the ascendant. No, this is actually opposite the part of fortune. Somebody else is going to have to try the hours to research whether this is affected by the nocturnal or the diurnal. But the idea is that my new hour is over here, and it is exactly opposite the part of fortune. I'm going to go into Starfisher and actually make this calculated point because I have not created it. And that's actually the reason I got on this recorder, because I was going to do this anyway. And I'm not trying to bore you with, an account of my chart, but I'm trying to show you what you think of, what kinds of considerations you make when you're determining how your hours work. I talk about this in Laurentia and how I give you some steps for observing things, but I never really figured out how to cleanly explain the hours. And like I said, the hours are 70% of what you do. By the way, I told you I moved and I'm in Georgia now. I'm no longer in Texas. The premise is the same. For a lot of the things that you want to activate, you just need to move. I mean, this should make sense in your mind, but you have to accompany it with action. I could only go so far in the place I came from. Here's very different. I chose it. I chose it on the basis of things that were my decision, not just a place I started in. And I'm telling you, much like picking when you wake up, picking where you wake up, where you are, where you live is critical to any kind of hacking. You could try to be a millionaire, but if you're living around people who discourage you, if you're living in a city that doesn't Doesn't even have that thing that you're going to be a millionaire in. You're not going to have that because it affects your Neptune, basically your ambient environment, your Neptune and your Pluto, your pressures. If you're in the wrong place, in the wrong city, in the wrong job, in the wrong context, you need to move. Like if you're trying to really astro hack and you're trying to make your life better or whatever, you need to get away from these forces that don't want you to have it. You know what I'm saying? It's not that the grass is greener when you move. It's more like the grass is your kind of grass, right? You're still going to have problems. I've got creatures in my house, but it's better than having creatures imposed on me back in San Antonio. You know what I'm saying? And so, and I talk about this in Alma Mater. There's a point at which I said, you need to move. I said that I moved. I did move, and so much better. Think about that. Like, think about how you're going to work your astro hacks if you're just in the wrong chemical bath in the first place. Anyway, so let's go and add this new body. I'm gonna, let me try that again. Go to Window and Starfisher. Not Window, sorry, Tools and Starfisher. Go to Settings. Go to Bodies. And I'm going to clone the part of Fortune. Part of Fortune right here. Just clone it. And I'm going to call it the Anti-Fortune. Doesn't mean that it's against Fortune. It just means that it's opposite to it. Oh, wait a minute. See that hyphen? Can't do that. Starfisher doesn't like that. These are variable names, so Starfisher is going to think that that's math. Just put text in there. I put Anti-Fortune, no underscores, no nothing. And I mean, underscores, I think they work, but just do it this way. Click OK. Okay, so what you see here is, let me see if I can blow this up a bit. Let's blow that up right about there. Okay, that may be a bad idea. I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover my window, but okay. So anyway, let's do that. Okay, so we have this window for the part of the Anti-Fortune. I cloned it, so I'm going to call it Anti-Fortune because this is just a comment. I can put the hyphen again. Nah, I won't because I'm doing another thing. Anti-Fortune, and I'll say the part of Fortune is where you're in your element, and so sorry, it's who you are when you're in your element. Apparently, when I'm in my element, I like to show off structures that I made or whatever. The opposition is the context that you're acting against. So when you're in your element, you are, well, there's a place that allows you to be in your element. And so the Anti-Fortune is where you are in your element. The Fortune is who you are in your element. The Anti-Fortune is where you are in your element. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Also, take a moment to kind of contemplate why the sun is the fifth, the moon is the fourth, the node is the third. So there's something about the sun, moon, earth system that has a chunk of the chart assigned to it. And the part of Fortune takes into consideration the ascendant. So the rising, the tilt against the sun-moon position, while the node takes into account the kind of gravitational, it's Keplerian, and I'm forgetting the plane of orbit. But anyway, it's the spin of the plane of orbit for the moon. And so all of this is accounted for. So the part of Fortune is not very far off in terms of something that would deal with your identity. But your identity is not so much you identifying. These are the things you identify against. I always say I identify as an oldest brother, identify as a scholar. These are external objects against which I measure myself. And so if I'm measuring myself as who I am in my element in the part of fortune, then the external object against which I measure myself, brother, scholar, uh, black, whatever, they would fit with the anti-fortune. Does that make sense? Not trying to rationalize it. Well, yeah, I am trying to rationalize it because, otherwise, who would have known that this was a thing? So it's where you're in your element, and the abbreviation will be AF. And I don't want the glyph, so I'm going to go in here and just delete it. There we go. And since I deleted the glyph, it's going to show up as AF. I might put the glyph back, but if I did, I don't know that I want to use. I don't know that I want to use the same one. I kind of want to use something different. Maybe this target. No, I don't know. It's maybe this triangle here. No, I'm not going to do that. Now look at this. Look at this formula for the part of fortune. If it's the daytime, it adds the moon, and if it's the nighttime, it subtracts the sun. Starfisher uses these as conditional adds and conditional subtracts. It's really nifty. It lets you calculate the part of fortune no matter what, and it came like this. So that's kind of cool. If you always wanted it to add the moon, you'd put a plus here. Always wanted it to subtract the sun, you'd put a minus. But if you're born at night, it wouldn't flip properly. So what I'm going to do is always add 180 to this. Starfisher is really sensitive about this formula, so I'm going to copy it too with Control-C because I don't know if it's going to like this. And I am going to use a custom color, so I'm going to say yes. And what custom color will it be? I'm going to have it be, I don't know, it's purple here. You know what? I am going to put the glyph back in a second, but let's just do it this way. Click OK. And because I don't trust my formula, I'm going to come back in here and edit. Okay, good. It's still there. It's the way it's supposed to be. I need to check on something. Okay, so the animals are back in my attic. The good news is that they're in an area where I can reach them now. I couldn't reach them earlier. So I'm going to have to, this house, I tell you. Anyway, what was I doing? They're not going to do, I swear, that animal better pray to Jesus that he doesn't fall through my roof because it's over. It's over for him if he does. Anyways, but I'm not saying we'll let him live. Their bait's up there, so eventually he'll find the bait. So anyway, here we are, and it worked. I'm going to go ahead and click OK on this, and then come in here and add. I'm going to take out the part of fortune, and I'm going to add in the anti-fortune. There we go. These are the hours. This is everything that rules the hours. Let me come over here and get my screen back. Okay. Yeah. So, as far as I can tell, these are the 12 rulers. The opposite of anti-fortune is what you would wake up at in order to dictate your Taurus type stuff. And if you couldn't wake up at it, you can kind of do some just basic experiencing of stuff while you're awake. But for the most part, if you really wanted to activate this and it's in the middle of your workday, I would just take a nap. Take a nap, a serious nap at 11:30. And you don't have to wake up at the actual hour. You have to wake up in the band. And that was one thing that I need to note, because I don't have to wake up at 6:34. I could wake up at 6:50. As long as it's anywhere between 6:34 and 7:17, I'm in the hour of sun. As long as I wake up anytime between 12:19 p.m. and 5:21, I'm in the hour of AntiFortune. So this is what I wanted to record. Um, Tonight I basically found, in my own chart at least, the last hour, and I did it by looking at receipts. Well, not just receipts, but just the day in general. Going to the store wasn't the only thing that I did. There was also a there's housework. There was battling, well, not battling, but setting the bait up for those guys in the attic, and beginning the other fixes around the house, which had parallels for what I was doing. And if you just watch where you do one thing and then it kind of feels similarly to another thing, then you'll start to establish the pattern for your hours. It's key to astrohacking. Before I leave, I want to tell you the 3 things that you probably want to do if you want to start using your astrology chart to truly, truly just making your life whatever you want. Other than producing this table, which you really want to think about doing, and I have other recordings for that. Other than producing that table, the 3 things you need in order to use the hours are: 1, to wake up with no alarm on days when you can and observe the differences between days. That's the first thing. The second thing you need to do is, I'm not going to say move, but that first thing will tell you how the hours work and when they are. But if you want to use them, the second thing you need to do is prepare to move, prepare to switch contexts, look for a new job, look for a new place, whatever, so you can get your abilities to uncap some of these things under control. And the third thing that you need to do is very consciously pick when you wake up. To find the hours, you need to wake up whenever, all the time, and just observe. To use the hours, you'll learn that you don't want to wake up at this particular window, and you can kind of cheat and eyeball the clock and roll back over if you don't want to get up then. You can groggily drag yourself to the bathroom but not become consciously awake and lie back down, and it's like you never woke up. That's fine. That actually is legal. If you're trying to get a midnight snack and you don't want to be up at that hour, I don't know. The midnight snack requires thought. You might have to wake up for that. So, but anyway, these are how you get your hours under control. I've been trying to share this because it is my number 1 weapon for astrohacking. Waking up at the hour of Venus all the time is basically what I've been doing, especially when the alternative was to fight at the hour of Uranus or the hour of Pluto. And when I can't do Venus, I wake up at the Sun or Mercury or Saturn or Node or Jupiter or any of the good ones. But the fight ones, I don't wake up at this one, or this one, unless I'm really trying to do something on purpose. And I can really control where I'm going to end up that next day. I'd rather not be at work for those hours. By the way, my Mars, which rules the 8th band, that's where I have a bunch of bad asteroids. I mean, because everybody has them, like Ricarda and Natalie, and all these punishing asteroids are in my 8s across the chart, but especially in Virgo. If I'm going to wake up at Mars, I want to not be doing Virgo things on that day. I want to be doing something that has favorable asteroids in the 8th. But again, that's a matter of further astro hacking. Good luck with this.